All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Ape Answers. In this episode, number 8, we're going to talk a little bit about FCC certification and what it means in amateur radio. I recently did a video on this radio, the Retevis RA1, and we covered topics around the legality of using radios that don't meet FCC standards. And there was a lot of questions around FCC certification, so I figured we would go ahead and do this video. So our first question comes from the Sazowski, and I know I didn't say that correctly, but I tried. And he asked, what is the FCC ID number on the sticker of the radio? And we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Now, Retevis does actually have legitimate FCC IDs on their radios, but I did want to point out, we've tested a number of radios, or received a number of radios here at TheSmokinApe Studios, that one, didn't have FCC ID stickers on the radios, which is a problem. We receive a number of radios that have FCC IDs that when you look them up in the database are non-existent, which is another problem. And then in the case of this radio, we have an FCC ID that is for certification that has absolutely nothing to do with amateur radio. What he says next is the same spurious test is supposed to be conducted by the company and it needs to pass in order to get the FCC ID approval. That's not true. And he also says you can look up the test results on the FCC website with the ID number, and we're going to do just that. He also says if the radio passed that testing but is failing your testing, what is different? Did the company fake the test, or are you missing something in your test setup? Most of the time when we receive radios for testing, they come from Amazon. When they come from Amazon, they're pulled from a large pool of inventory and likely aren't doctored or fixed up or tuned up radios or anything like that. So here's a screenshot from FCCID.io. You can go here and you can look up FCC IDs and see what certifications have been granted to a particular radio. In the third row down, you can see short link FCCID / and this is the FCC ID for this particular radio, 2A300RTA1. And you can see all kinds of documents that pertain to the radio. But down at the bottom, under operating frequency, you can see various frequency ranges and you can see rule parts. Under the column for rule parts for each frequency band that was tested, it did get certified for Part 15, Subpart B. And this has something to do with a thing called an incidental or non-incidental radiator. It doesn't have anything to do with FCC regulations that are outlined in Part 97, which is the part that governs amateur radio. These are not legitimate tests to say if this is a good radio or not. These are tests that say if it's an incidental radiator, which would cause harmful interference to other things in your house, like your television set or your DVD player. It's important to note that Part 97 is a section of the FCC rules that governs amateur radio operations in the United States. Part 97 is a component of Title 47 in the Code of Federal Regulations. Title 47 covers all aspects of telecommunications in the United States. We also got a question from Stupendstick4442. I hope that's not a medical condition. He said, so if it's that bad, how did it get an FCC type acceptance for sale in the U.S.? Or it's just a case of the manufacturer sending a good tuned, proper specimen for certification and then just mass producing garbage for general sale once the FCC cert is obtained? Not being snarky, this is a serious question and I'm not doubting your displayed results. So in this case, if the manufacturer had sent me a proper tuned specimen, I guess that's what he says, then it would have passed. And then the other ones that are sold to the general public would have failed. The thing is that this didn't get any FCC type acceptance for Part 97, which is the part that governs amateur radio in the United States. Corpsalot asked another question. And he says, sorry, but it's not my responsibility to confirm that a radio meets FCC guidelines. That's incorrect. That responsibility belongs solely to the manufacturer producing said equipment, and if the FCC wants to ignore their own rules and approved said equipment, that's on them. I don't know how to be more clear about this. I've said it in numerous videos. There is no Part 97 certification that you can get from the FCC for amateur radio equipment. The only thing that is certified under Part 97 in the ham shack is the operator. You get that certification when you pass your test, and then the rules apply to your level of entitlements under the test which you passed, whether it's technician, general, or extra. He says, as a ham, I can certainly understand why spurious emissions could be a problem, But I'll be damned if I'm going to invest thousands of dollars worth of equipment to test for a situation that was deemed unacceptable by the very same government agency that let it pass. They don't let them pass. Unfortunately, the way that Part 97 is written, or maybe fortunately, depending upon your interpretation, it is the role of the amateur radio operator to ensure that they are operating in compliance with FCC regulations. It's also their obligation to make sure that their station is built with good engineering practice. So I responded, sorry, bro, you're wrong. The operation and engineering of the station is the responsibility of the station operator, who happens to be you. Keep in mind, you passed a test from the FCC certifying you are capable of doing just that. So we talked about the certifications given to the Retevis radio, 15B, and it refers to the subpart B of Part 15 in Title 47 in the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. This subpart specifically governs unintentional radiators. Unintentional radiators are devices that emit radio frequency RF energy during their normal operation, but not as a primary function. Oddly enough, as your amateur radio equipment, that is the primary function. These emissions are incidental and not intended to be used for communication purposes. Well, in the test and the way it was set up for the harmonic and spurious emissions, those were absolutely for the intended use of communication purposes. So again, the certification that is granted under 15B has nothing to do with FCC regulation under Part 97. So examples of devices that fall under Subpart B include computers and peripherals like monitors and printers, television receivers, digital cameras, electronic toys, and any device with digital circuitry such as a microwave or LED light. So what I struggle to understand is how anybody can confuse a Part 15B certification from the FCC as a pass to use a radio that is problematic in terms of creating harmful interference. Anyhow, that's going to wrap up this video. And remember, if you ask any questions, you might be featured on the next episode of Ape Answers. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's greatly appreciated.